The first rule of Fight Club is simple. You do not talk about Fight Club. By day, he is just another exhausted office worker trapped inside a gray cubicle. Everywhere he walks, giant ads promise happiness through things you can buy. At home, he studies furniture catalogs, believing the right couch might fix life. His apartment looks perfect and modern, yet something inside him feels empty. Night after night, he lies awake staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Business trips blur together while he flies above endless glowing cities. Then one flight changes everything. A strange, confident man sits beside him. The man calmly explains that society controls people through comfort and fear. Later, he returns home expecting the same quiet apartment as always. Instead, he finds flashing lights and smoke where his building once stood. Everything he owned is gone, his carefully designed life erased overnight. Sitting alone on the curb, he wonders who he can even call now. Eventually, he meets the strange man again outside a quiet bar. The man explains a radical idea. Society turns men into obedient consumers. Then he makes a strange request. "Hit me as hard as you can." The office worker hesitates. Violence was never part of his world. But suddenly, the first punch lands under the empty parking lot lights. Both men begin laughing while fighting wildly for the first time. Bruised and exhausted, they realize they feel strangely alive now. Curious strangers stop to watch the strange fight in the parking lot. Soon a small crowd gathers around them, fascinated by the chaos. More men want to experience the same brutal freedom. The confident rebel leads the office worker down into a dark basement. A circle forms under dim lights as the first underground fights begin. The rebel stands in the center, explaining the rules of the club. Two men step into the circle while the crowd tightens around them. Punches echo through the basement while the fighters test themselves. The office worker watches closely, feeling something change inside him. Another brutal fight ends with bruises, sweat, and strange smiles. Soon, the office worker steps forward and enters the circle himself. The crowd roars as punches land in the basement fight circle. When the fight ends, he stands bleeding but strangely proud. The rebel begins speaking about freedom through pain and honesty. Around him, the fighters listen like members of a new brotherhood. More men arrive each week searching for the same feeling. The basement grows louder as the circle expands every night. The rebel walks through the crowd while respect for him grows. In a cracked mirror, the office worker washes blood from his face. Back in the basement, another fight begins as the crowd forms a tight circle. The office worker watches the growing crowd, realizing the club is expanding. The rebel calmly observes the fights like a scientist studying an experiment. More bruised men cheer loudly while another brutal fight begins. Soon, the office worker steps forward again, ready for another fight. Punches land hard while the basement crowd roars around them. After the fight, he stands exhausted but smiling with quiet pride. The rebel begins speaking again while the fighters gather around him. He explains that modern life has made men weak and obedient. Around him, the fighters stand silently, listening to every word. Soon, the basement becomes packed with new men every night. The office worker watches the club grow far beyond two fighters. More men step into the circle, hoping to feel the same freedom. The rebel walks slowly through the crowd like a calm leader. Fighters with bruised faces now treat the basement like a brotherhood. After another fight, the office worker washes blood from his hands. Back in the room, the rebel stands alone, watching the fighters leave. Night after night, the basement fills with more restless men. Soon, the rebel begins organizing the fighters with strict discipline. The chaotic fights slowly transform into structured training. Rows of fighters now practice punches and movements together. The office worker notices the club is becoming something larger. The rebel walks past the fighters, inspecting them like soldiers. Soon, groups stand waiting silently for their next instructions. Late at night, small teams quietly leave through the back door. They move through dark streets like shadows, beginning secret work. The office worker nervously watches as the plan begins spreading. From the shadows, the rebel calmly observes the growing operation. Soon, meetings grow larger as dozens gather in silence. The rebel speaks to them like a revolutionary leader. The office worker begins sensing the club is changing. The fighters now follow instructions without hesitation. The basement feels less like chaos and more like an army. Across the city, new groups begin appearing in secret places. The underground movement slowly spreads through the night. The office worker realizes something powerful is forming. The rebel promises that destruction will bring true freedom. Followers listen quietly, believing every word he says. Soon, the movement grows far beyond the original basement, and the office worker wonders if this can still be stopped. Soon, the underground movement spreads through many buildings across the city. Small groups gather quietly in basements and warehouses every night. Each man waits silently for the next instructions from their leader. The rebel walks through the crowd with calm, absolute confidence. The office worker watches him, unsure if he still understands this man. Soon, followers begin preparing larger, coordinated actions. Teams move carefully through the city under the cover of darkness. The office worker notices how organized the movement has become. What began as chaos now looks like a disciplined machine. The rebel explains that society itself must be reset. His followers listen without hesitation or doubt. Across the city, strange coordinated actions begin happening. Buildings, businesses, and systems quietly start feeling pressure. The office worker begins fearing what the movement might become, but the rebel appears completely calm, watching everything unfold. For him, this is the final stage of transformation. More followers gather inside a massive warehouse meeting. Hundreds of men stand silently under dim lights. The rebel addresses them like a revolutionary leader. He explains that destroying the system will create freedom.